It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this week we're diving into one of the most detailed, leaked MCU timelines for the next 5 years that I've ever seen.
Call the plumber. Your basement is flooding, Marvel.
Mario Brothers. Call the
it's out
Super
of
Mario
control.
Brothers. They will fix
It is
your
out
leaks.
of control. Yeah, I won't even like bury the lead. It was just it was a massive amount, and Chris did an insane amount of work that we'll talk about here in a moment for organizing all of this information. So we'll see if it all comes to fruition or not, but it's definitely fun to look at.
It is 100% fun to theorize and speculate about this, and this is probably like the only episode we'll have an interactive piece. You can interact along with us, Mike. You guys will find out that more later. And as we talked about last week, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles caused some mutant mayhem with the first trailer for that. I'm excited to talk about that. Scooby Doo's canceled movie leaks.
Oh,
So-
I forgot that was like early in the week, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was like the middle of the week, but like I don't know if anyone was like. I literally looked up this movie, the information about the Scooby Doo movie, and there was like 8 other Scooby Doo projects canceled, and I'm like, Warner Brothers is really taking these tax cuts to a whole new level, and they're relying entirely on Scooby and the gang for that. So we'll talk about all this fun stuff this week. We've got there's more than Marvel in here, but I would say most of this show is going to be talking about this timeline to get into it. So I'm going to just jump into what I've been doing real fast, Mike, because you know we've got this is like you mentioned the most notes we've had in a long time for a show. So very excited. This weekend was the Louisville Arcade Expo. I always tell everyone, if you're ever in Louisville, usually the second weekend in March, they have the Louisville Arcade Expo. You pay entry to get in, and you have access to pinball machines, arcade machines. They had a Smash Brothers tournament, a Dr. Mario tournament, a whole room dedicated to the history of every video game console, like even like the ones you've never seen or heard of, like the old, like they look like old Mac computers, like the Apples, whole rooms of this stuff, and it's just absolutely fantastic to be there around all these like actual authentic games, Mike. You just don't get that anymore. Like you see a lot of new ones or reproductions of like beercades, or like, you know, when you go to like Dave and Buster's or whatever you have in your area, but these are like the retro ones, like the old school, old classic things. Like they're even like some of the lights are dimmed a little bit because they've been running for so long. You're like, you probably need to update those bulbs, but like it feels like you're in an 80s arcade more than anything.
Man, like I think sometimes especially if you're in a younger generation, you forget just how groundbreaking the concept of an arcade was back in the day, before you could play video games at home. Like, wow, what a novel concept that would be. I wish I could remember the dude's name, but there's this like just off his rocker, crazy kooky businessman that existed in like the arcade heyday, that was trying to like open these arcades on the East Coast, and they've written like books about him too. I wouldn't be surprised if there's documentaries out there as well, where he would try to like build arcades in like these kind of like smaller towns or whatever, and it would be like almost like he was trying to open up like a satanic church, and they're trying to like run him out of town or have the mayor pass a law so he couldn't open an arcade there or whatever. And he just went through all of these like crazy shenanigans to get the arcade open and stuff. It was a whole nother era.
Yeah.
The things that you had to do before when you wanted to play a video game that didn't exist inside your house.
Absolutely. And you know, the way technology works, it evolves so fast, right? Like, you know, everyone's like, oh, you got Pong and Pac-Man and Galaga and all those things. But then you get, you know, the fighting games. Like, there's a bunch of Street Fighter cabinets. There was a Dance Dance Revolutions. This guy had brought his own custom Steamboat Willie pinball machine. And it was really cool because in the back screen it would play Steamboat Willie clips, like old, you know, Mickey Mouse stuff. But he had it set up with a fog machine inside and 2 pipes at the top, so it looked like it was like literally letting off steam like while you were playing this arcade machine or this pinball machine. And I thought that was really, really fun. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I go every year. I always talk about every year, and this year it's been almost quarter of a day there yesterday. I did pick up some classic arcade games. You ever play the Rush, San Francisco Rush racing games?
Yes.
Okay, I bought San Francisco Rush for my N64. I got Double Dribble, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original NES game, Mike, and NES Open, which is the first Mario Golf for regular Nintendo. So really cool place to pick up some collector's items and also play some arcade games and pinball for a while. So always that. And then that also reminds me, at the end of this month is C2E2. If you're going or haven't got your tickets, go ahead and get those because you're gonna want to buy those, get there, have a good time. I'm gonna see Chris Evans at it, Mike. I'm very excited to get my photo with him. So as I've told everyone, that's America's ass, and I'm very excited to get my picture with it. So yeah, let's jump into the news. Let's just get into this because we've got a lot going on here. Reminder. This is the week for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. If you're one of 10 people who've bought tickets so far for this movie, join us this weekend to watch this movie.
Yes, and this is not an indication of the quality of the film. This
Correct.
is just our anecdotal evidence of when we went to go buy tickets and like, wow, there's a lot of available seats. So I will reiterate, since we'll be talking about this movie next week on the podcast.
Yeah,
I liked the first one. I liked it. I did. So I'm hoping that consistently goes through to the sequel. I believe it's the same director.
Yes.
Probably the same writing team. Not 100% sure. So I'm crossing my fingers. But yeah, I don't think people are too jazzed up for Shazam 2.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is always if is Shazam something in the future not for the DCU, right? That's what everyone asks. Do I need to even watch this? So the director, I did see an interview. Someone's like, this I guess is so disconnected from the DCU and the DCEU that he's like, if this movie is a box office success, then yes, Shazam will carry over. If not, probably not. So, it's like I said, just empty seats doesn't mean there's quality. Just no one's advanced buying their tickets for this one. So we'll see as that goes. I did get confirmation this week there are 2 post-credit scenes.
Whoa!
So
that's pretty big for its britches. I would have assumed you get a half a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Depending on the life of your movie here.
Yeah, but if you remember the first one, at the end of Shazam 1, it was just him like listing off powers or something like he had. It was something silly. It wasn't even related to the movie, right? It was like the one at the end was like very silly and not adjacent. And the first one after the credits, I believe, was where they had Dr. Savannah talking to a worm in his window.
Well, also you got to remember the one where he I don't know if this was a post-credit scene or just before the credits rolled, where he goes to school and Superman. Well, bottom half of Superman is there.
Yeah, bottom 90%. That's actually before the post-credit scenes. That's actually the last scene of the actual movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
I know this because my wife just watched it like a week ago for the first time, and I walked in and saw that part specifically. Yeah, absolutely. So Shazam! Fury of the Gods in theaters this week. The possibly one of the last vestiges of the DCEU. Possibly not. The other fun fact that actually had less seats sold than Shazam, but only because it was the first hour this went on sale, is Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers tickets are now on sale. March 10th is Mario Day, so everybody, Nintendo goes out for they like, you can save $20 on our games once a year. And
I had no idea that March 10th was Mario Day. And if you
really?
If you go to watch the trailer on like YouTube, they cut the small portion of the Nintendo Direct in front of the trailer. So it's Miyamoto, the guy who makes Mario, right? It's him explaining to the camera what Mario Day is, and he's just like, if you abbreviate March, it's MAR, and if you have a 10, it's 10. You put it together, it looks like Mario. So it's Mario. It's like, okay, I get it. I got it the second that you showed me it written out on the screen. It was just funny when they try to translate the Japanese excitement to American subtitles.
My guess is they don't even have this in Japan, and that's who he was explaining it to, because they don't call it March in Japan, right? They have another name for it. Like, this is uniquely native to English-speaking countries. So
yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
So absolutely. So March 10th, Mario Day, and tickets are now on sale for this movie. I'm excited. Like we said before the show, the next 4 weeks are full of some movies that we do want to go see in theaters and look like a fun time. And Mario, despite everyone says about the voicing, it still looks fun. It looks beautiful. It's hitting all the right nostalgia beats for people who grew up with Mario.
So. Chris, speaking of things we want to see from our childhood,
yes, as it goes right into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. The trailer we were promised has been delivered, Mike, and I will tell you,
this was so close to being the top tier thumbnail. This was going to be like the whole theme of the show. It was going to be like turtles from head to toe.
I really thought it was going to be. I even went to a Walmart to take pictures of toys for Mike from not from this movie, but for Turtles, because I saw
even the Turtles have graduated from being the last bullet point in our show notes, where Chris usually puts it. And now it's at the top. I mean, it's basically the first bit of news that we have outside of telling you when to go buy your tickets for things.
Yeah, and it was at the bottom, but I was like, the rest of the show, most of the show is just going to drown everything else out. So let's go ahead, because this is important. I think, growing up as watching the Turtles cartoon, and I asked Mike recently if he's played Shredder's Revenge, the newest game made in the classic style, but it's a brand new game. I recommend it highly. It's great 4-player online. Even single player is awesome. Couch co-op. The Turtles is fun. And I can tell you right now, as maybe not as big of a fan as you, Mike, this trailer at the end of it left me with a stupid-ass grin on my face because it was so fun. It was so fun, and I was having a great time watching it and seeing its interaction.
I think the thing that put the most smile on my face is just the art style overall. They're kind of approaching the looseness, I would say, that you've been seeing in a lot of animated productions over the last couple years. Spider-Verse, of course, Mitchell's versus the Machines, Puss in Boots, right? But this is taking it even farther, where they will just they're just, I feel like, taking concept art, rotoscoping it and almost turning it into a character. You can see, is it Bebop or Rocksteady? Who's the warthog again? Bebop? I think.
Yes. I believe
yes,
so.
Bebop's little boar nose is isometric, flat to the screen, and there's these goofy humanoid characters that look like, the best way to describe them would be, if you're a fan of Rick and Morty, whenever there's just random background characters, they just barely draw their faces right. So you get these really goofy looking characters, and then you have just these adorable looking turtles, which we talked about last week, were all voiced by basically kids.
Teenagers voicing them. I would say almost the art style, it's almost an improve, a 3D / cell shaded look to the Turtles, I would say, almost, right? You're right. I think, to me, I love that they're playing with art style, but also more importantly, playing with frame rate, right? This is not the action, the pops, everything is not it doesn't look like standard 24 or 30. It looks like they're playing with some of that frame rate to accentuate the action pieces in here.
If you look at just, Avatar: The Way of Water, where they were playing with frame rates through their movie last year, it just seems like frame rate is almost becoming a creative choice now than just choice of limitations like it's always been historically. Animation has been on 12s, every other frame to save money and to save budget, but now if you're technically running everything through a computer, it can be whatever frame rate you want, right? And you can do the same thing with live action, depending on what frame rate you film it with to begin with. So now it's kind of this interesting place where it's well, how does the scene play out the most creative? Do we do it just kind of low or high? So this is the fun time to be a part of. And also the story, it just seems so heartwarming and funny, and also pushing that kind of adult factor to it. One of them gets stabbed in the leg, and they're all laughing at him, freaking out. I'm this is amazing.
I don't even know if I don't know if it's pushing adults in that realm, but it is very much to me, Leonardo's always been the serious leader, right? And in this one, he's just he doesn't know quite what to do. They all haven't found what we know them as from all the other stuff. So it's great to see that. Raphael's throwing a ninja star at a watermelon that has Mikey's face on it while he holds it above his head, kind of thing. Like, it's funny, it's silly, it's great. I mean, it just feels natural. I love that they've really taken it back just a little bit, right? Really emphasized the teenage part of the Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I think one of my favorite scenes of this, obviously near the end, where they talk like. Mutagenic goo. He's like, well, we prefer the word ooze, and they go in like this whole ooze spiel. Like, it just sounds better. I'm like, that's good. This is classic. And to your point, this is directed by the guy who did Mitchell and the Machines. It's the same director. So, that movie is sleeper hit. You've told people for years, get out and watch it. I can agree with that. So I think if you're excited for this, you should go watch that as well. But absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I just looked it up. The writer is Brendan O'Brien, who is basically straight out of Point Grey with Seth Rogen and his whole team. Written Neighbors, Neighbors 2, Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. All of those kind of recent Point Grey movies that we've seen out there in the world. So, I loved at the beginning of the trailer. It says from perpetual teenager Seth Rogen. So it's just like he gets it, he understands it. He lived and breathed mutants as we all have, and always will, because there will always be turtles out there on the screen. But I will tell everyone out there, as I always do, is just do your best to avoid the little niche corners of the internet that have just inane discourse about anything. Like you can watch like any trailer out there in the world that makes you happy, and you can find a corner of people out there in the world complaining about it. And it usually comes down to, unsurprisingly, the casting and the way different characters look, and usually their skin color. So don't participate in that nonsense. Everything about this trailer looks great. Everything looks awesome, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say also some of the toys have come out, and the only one I really want to hyper focus on, Mike, is the the movie van, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They call it the Party Wagon, or the Turtle Van, if you will. The movie is going to apparently. Toys don't always say it's going to be in the movie, but they have a pizza van that fires those old pizza discs that you remember when they came out with the toys. And then I found some retro figures at the store to send to Mike of you literally shoot the pizza out of the turtle's body. At stuff, so they are just leaning into that nostalgia factor right here, with the turtle van and everything. So I'm excited to watch this. I'm glad they really. It looks like giving it some love. It's not just a quick cash in on the way. I did also see on top of this, and not in the notes or anything, but they are re-releasing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the second series that was just called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think it was maybe 2011 or so that they came out with it. So Nickelodeon's re-releasing that in Blu-ray to coincide with this as well. Speaking of things that are being re-released, Max Fleischer's Superman. What year was this? Was this it wasn't the 40s, was it? It was maybe the 40s?
Oh, God, I'm trying to remember.
You asked me to download this for you.
Yeah, they're hard to find.
Yeah, very hard to find. But Warner Brothers is remastering them and re-releasing these to the public. So we're going to get Blu-ray, probably even 4K versions of Max Fleischer's animated Superman. 1941 is when this came out.
Yeah, I just looked it up as well. From 41 to 43. Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with these animated shorts, they are just absolutely jaw-dropping and breathtaking, because they are essentially I know I used rotoscoping earlier in the conversation, but this is a different definition of the word when it comes to animation, where they are just going frame by frame and using references of real people in the real world. So it's the animations just look so buttery smooth and just unlike anything that you've seen before. And if you also internalize this as something being made in the 1940s, all made by hand, it's just they're amazing to behold, and them getting an HD remaster, that's going to be beautiful. Yeah,
17 episodes, and at most I'm looking at the longest one's 10 minutes, and it's the first 2 episodes. And people have probably seen clips of this, right, where he's catching the car or punching somebody really hard. There's a lot going on from this that have been taken forward. I would even say Batman the Animated Series borrows heavily from this animation style.
And it's an early version of Superman as well. So if I remember correctly, he doesn't even have all of his like normal powers that we're used to him having in these shorts because it's so early days Superman. So yeah, I would say it's almost required viewing if you consider yourself a Superman fan.
Yeah, 17 episodes at like less than 10 minutes. You're looking at less than 3 hours spent, right, to get this done. And absolutely recommend it. So that's coming out probably, I think, later this year. Would not be surprised if it's going on the Max streaming service, Mike, which is not in here because we don't have confirmation yet. But the HBO Max might be renaming to just Max later this year. Scooby Doo and Krypto 2. That's Krypto the Super Dog, in case those weren't familiar. Superman's dog. There was an animated movie being made called this, and it is rumored, I'm pretty sure it's confirmed at this point, but at the point when I wrote these notes, it's rumored that this movie was completely scrapped from being released on a straight-to-video, obviously, for tax write-offs. And this movie was leaked online in full this week. I think the biggest thing here is this joins a long list of movies. The biggest one knowing Batgirl, right? Everyone knows Batgirl was scrapped. And that might lead the way for that to be leaked online or watched someday, maybe, right?
Yeah. Or it makes it even harder, right? If Scooby-Doo leaks, right, does that send up the red flags and warning signs of just like, oh, crap, actually, let's check who has access to these servers now. Maybe let's lock them down a little bit more. We can't have anything else leaking because it shakes my artificial power as a CEO if I don't have this stuff on lockdown that I'm canceling. But, yeah, I would love... Man, that Batgirl movie leaking would just be... It would be next level. It would be the whole nerd internet conversation for like weeks and weeks because we would be scrutinizing it at a totally different level in a way of just like, even if the movie would have to be truly atrocious, right, for people to side with a CEO like David Zaslav, right? But more than likely, the movie probably would have been fine and serviceable. And I think there are people out there in the world that have seen early test screenings and they were just like, yeah, the movie's like fine and it wasn't even done yet. So... Yeah. It would be wild. It'd be a wild week.
I don't think it was put down again for quality. I think like everyone says, like, yeah, if we don't release this, we can. He was out to save money and he cut everything he could under the sun. But absolutely, I think maybe somebody has a copy on a flash drive already, Mike, and this is just will encourage them to continue.
Come on, just leave the flash drive at a library or something. Somebody will figure it out.
Yeah, go over to take a week trip to Europe and upload it from there. They'll never find you. But I also wanted to say the other canceled items include Scooby Doo and the Mystery Pups, which was canceled the same day this was leaked, which I think was the triggering point. Scooby-Doo and the Haunted High Rise and Scoob Holiday Haunt were also canceled. So there is I say discourse because of the Velma show about Scooby-Doo right now, but like little do we know they've been making Scooby-Doo movies every year forever, and we just don't watch them all because we're not the target audience. But
it's frustrating being somebody who works on these projects, right? You have a lot of creative people that are in there putting their hard work and creativity into it, under the assumption that one day at least someone will be able to see it, right? Nobody likes having their work done in a vacuum. It doesn't matter what work you do anywhere, right? Nobody wants to go to work for months or years and then somebody throws it all away and then they say, oh, you're not allowed to complain, I'm still paying you. And it's like, well, yeah, but eventually somebody was supposed to like look at all of this hard work I did. So yeah, I don't blame whoever leaked it. That's for sure.
Yeah. See, I live in the corporate world where my stuff doesn't see the light of day. So I'm like, I get it, but like, it's funny that the leak, I guess the whole thing when it's leaked and like, do you think this will push their hand to put it on a streaming service officially? I guess is my question. Like, right? Like, what do you do with a leak that's this big and this, has perpetrated the news?
Also, I kind of wonder the legalities of everything too, right? Like, it was briefly on archive.org, which is kind of known for being this place where you almost put like things in the public domain almost, right? But like, that's not what this is. This is still copywritten material, even though it wasn't released. Well, so it's like, it's not really free, but it's out there in the world, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think it actually originated on 4chan, which was the crazy part. One of those sites that doesn't really, you don't want to go to anymore, but like it got there. But anyway, if you're looking to watch Scooby Doo and Krypto 2, you can probably find it online with searching. We won't put it there, but it's just wild that when it leaked. And then I was also going to say, I don't know if this is last week or this week, but Batman the Caped Crusader, the animated show from the animated series creators, was officially picked up for 2 seasons at Amazon, even though Warner Brothers passed on it for HBO Max. So
yeah,
that will see the light of day for, when they get to it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. It seems like Amazon is going with this interesting strategy of like, let's get crumbs. I'm not calling the show a crumb, but like in the grand scheme of superhero content, they're like, let's just pick up some stuff when we can. We'll make some random like offshoots of Spider-Man stuff. Let's throw this Batman stuff up here.
Well, I'm interested to know how much of the Batman stuff was done when they did, like, pick it up. Like, I assume it was more than just, hey, here's our log line and an image for it, right? Like, how many episodes were complete and like, oh yeah, well, we can just go ahead and get this up and going by the end of the year kind of thing.
I wonder if maybe Amazon has interesting analytics when it comes to, maybe leveraging their Twitch platform of just like, hey, we know these hyper-focused, like very nerdy communities, they will drive attention and views. So let's get Batman.
I bet they also have sales data for Batman stuff. The animated series is our #1 best-selling animated show ever. On the Blu-ray box set. Let's pick it up. Let's go with that. So absolutely, I think that's cool. Everybody has a Prime account, right? So we can watch this when it drops, whenever that is. But that was cool. That was cool news. The other side, I don't have it in the notes here because it doesn't really matter. But the Kill the Justice League game was delayed again. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
We'll never get to play that game at this point. So anyway. Let's shift gears into Star Wars. I was trying to keep all the cancellations together. Kevin Feige and Patty Jenkins' Star Wars movies have been essentially shelved at this point in time, per Variety. Taika Waititi's has not been, and he is it is rumored that he's potentially to star in his own movie.
Oh boy!
Rather than being the director.
Yeah, when I saw that news earlier this week of how he would star in his own project, and I'm just like, I think we're giving Taika maybe a little bit too much control of his creative world in front of him. Like, I know we always say power to the creators, but, somebody give him a creative producer that can just kind of say, hey, come on.
Well, my hope is from his work on The Mandalorian, maybe he has a good working relationship with Favreau and Filoni, right? Because he's I know he's just a voice over IG-11, but like still, like maybe he's like, Dave gave me a great idea and he's signed off on it, right? Kind of thing, is my hopes. But Star Wars Celebration, the news says that there will be announcements for the next main series movies and some release dates for the Disney Plus series at Star Wars Celebration Europe later this year.
Everything Marvel, Star Wars, just everything kind of Disney adjacent, right? They all have to get focused now because that's what we learned from the latest quarterly earnings, right, from that company. So everything is just getting more focused. They're taking the safer routes. So, they're probably just like, hey, Kevin, we love you, but let's focus on Marvel right now.
Well, I think the thing is, they said that, and for Marvel, Star Wars doesn't have enough content to be unfocused, I feel, sometimes. Because I know the article's like, Bob referenced Solo for we got to be careful from now on. Well, Solo was your own fault. Like, you released if nobody remembers, it was Star Wars was every December, and then they put Solo in May. So, like, you had a movie, Last Jedi, in May or in December that people were very, very divided on, and then they wanted to watch. Then they put Solo out 5 months later in May, right? Rather than waiting to the following Christmas where the heat would die down, if you will. And that movie had to fire its directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, 2/3 of the way or more through the movie and bring Ron Howard in. I'm like, I think you did it to yourself. Like, you could have just delayed Solo and probably had better results than trying to force it out 5 months after a movie that were, went both ways critically. So, but Star Wars, I wish you've been watching The Mandalorian, right? You're caught up. It's just been great to go back to that world, right? Like after Andor, we had a pause, and now we're back with Mandalorian. Then we'll have a pause. We'll probably be back with Ahsoka. I'm excited to revisit some more Star Wars here and there. It doesn't need to do Marvel levels, and we're going to talk about Marvel levels here in a second, but it doesn't need to do that much. I think every twice a year is pretty good. Speaking of Star Wars, the Acolyte, the show that is coming up, right? The one set in the past of Star Wars. Is the producer they hired for that like was on set for one day and then they fired her, so she's suing the company for I guess firing her after being on the job for one day. So we're gonna see how this plays out.
Yeah, God, it makes you wonder what happened there, right? That is definitely something interpersonal, that doesn't seem like, creative,
Differences.
Different creative, that's like something happened. Somebody said something to somebody that didn't go over well.
Yeah, one day, like the first day you're there, and like, actually, please don't come back the second. And you're like, what happened? So very excited to see those details kind of roll out. So. We'll keep you guys posted. I think that one, not that one. I think we're getting some introductions to characters in The Mandalorian that will play off in the Skeleton Crew show that's set in the same time frame. So I'm gonna have to make Mike a timeline for Star Wars after
yes.
This. And we're about to jump into Marvel. So buckle up, buckaroos. We're gonna get into this. So first and foremost, the biggest news this week, I think, officially, is that Jon Bernthal will return as the Punisher in Daredevil Born Again. Huge, a lot of fans happy about this, Mike.
Yeah, that's great. The news actually reminded me that I never got around to watching that last season of The Punisher, right? Because, why everything on Netflix was kind of fizzling out over there. And we know that these are going to be alternate versions of the characters anyway. But, yeah, definitely glad to see Bernthal returning. Yeah,
that's a good carryover. Karen Page and Foggy Nelson will not be coming back, apparently, though, in this, I guess, universe. So
yeah. Which makes a little sense when you think about it, right? Because it's easy to bring in like these random like heroes or anti-heroes like Daredevil or Punisher, right? Because they're essentially the same character for the most part, no matter what universe you pluck them from. They're heroes, they wear the same costumes, same powers, right? But now you're talking about just like human beings that are just have different interpersonal relationships, right? So it's like we have no idea, like, because like Matt Murdock and Karen were like on and off again relationship wise in the Netflix show. So like, where the heck would they be at, right? In this new universe, would they even be dating at all? So I guess it just makes things a little bit easier.
We call it baggage, and they're not bringing their baggage over. They're just bringing their abilities and their I love the characters, right? Yeah. I love both of those characters from the Netflix show, but yeah, unfortunately, it's a little harder to transition. Yeah, you don't. If you want to start over, like maybe they cast new, or maybe they can bring him in later, but like they don't need to come back in for the show. Just get on with the superheroing. That's what we like most about those. All right, so the MCU, we had a leak for the next 5 years, up to 2028. Or I guess a rumor. This is a leak and a rumor. It's the same thing in this situation. So please take everything we say from here on out with a huge grain of salt, if you will. Or however much sodium you want to put on this. I don't care. But this has come from apparently trusted sources and very much could possibly be maybe what's on that quote-unquote dry erase board we always theorize they have over at Marvel. And some of it may come to fruition. Some of it may not. But that's fine. But as you mentioned at the top of this, Bob Iger has said, we need to focus on our content. And one of the things that the schedule kind of shows is they're working to space out these releases to tell a better story, right? They say 2 movies, 2 shows, 2 specials a year, but that actually contradicts itself very quickly when you start looking at this. There's like 4 movies a year, sometimes 5. So we'll break it down here, what that means. But what they're trying to do, and you can tell, is that they're trying to reduce the gap in between events happening, right? Such as WandaVision ending, and then we had a year and a half until Doctor Strange 2, right? Which was supposed to be right after that one. So they are trying to reduce people forgetting what's going on in between events in here, and we'll talk about that a little bit. The other part of that is they're looking for a better schedule for VFX teams and production crews, so hiring more VFX teams to work on this to make things better and put the stress off whatever main team they're using throughout this. So
yeah, that's like a difficult like PR problem, right? That I feel like they've been butting up against for a while now. Every time a Marvel movie comes out, there's always that like Variety or Deadline article that quickly follows of just like, these are the VFX artists that, you know, lost their minds trying to make this movie that you just watched. So yeah, there's no reason that can't be solved. That is just all like just capitalistic structures that just need to get better, and that's just all humans making better decisions about all of that. So hopefully that does get fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. And more VFX scenes, you know, I don't care how long the credits run at the end, as long as everyone is working regular hours and can have a life other than just working on a VFX for Marvel movies.
Honestly, from my point of view, like, and I'm not going to be somebody that says, hey, stop pushing VFX to look better and more realistic, right? Because obviously we want that. But I look at the VFX landscape the way it is, and it's almost like I'm fine with it, right? You know, I would say from an execution point of view, even though a lot of people were dogging on Ant-Man, I was just like, visually everything looks like it was executed well. I would just like a little bit more concentration on the just the visual development and the aesthetic choices, right? You know, a lot of these things in the movies is just like, oh, you can make whatever you want, right? But like, let's make better decisions of what we put on screen, not necessarily how much like visual fidelity and how much we try to fine tune the physics engine, right? You know, I feel like I'm reaching my upper levels when it comes to visuals. Kind of like when I put on like, you know, a fancy set of like headphones, right? Somebody will tell me like, oh, these are the fanciest headphones on the planet. You have this insane dynamic range. And I'm just like, yeah, this is fine. I'm just going to put my earbuds on though as soon as I take these off. So I don't know. I would say concentrate more on the aesthetic choices and, you know, you could probably push the VFX team a little less.
Yeah, I think I never really have a huge complaint against it, right? In Marvel movies, they seem to be pretty, you know, consistent. Yeah, there are spots here and there, one-shots, but obviously a lot of those probably feel like filler shots, right? Like last-minute things they had to do to make the story done. But overall, I don't go into Marvel movie like, oh, is this going to be Henry Cavill's upper lip in, you know, the Justice League movie bad level kind of thing? So I absolutely agree with that. All right, so here at this part of the show, you can actually go into our show notes, go down to the MCU button, and click Interactive Timeline. It's a URL, and it's going to take you to a timeline I made for this show.
Yes, let's all take a minute here. We'll give Chris a rounding applause here because this was a lot of work. This was a lot of intense clicking and typing and finding images, and I have the thousands of text messages back and forth as I pick up my phone and drop it here. So this time there's a lot of love and effort put into this timeline.
Yes. Mike sounds facetious, but it did literally. I wanted to do it simply because if you look at this list from a text point of view, it is awful. It is awful to look at this because you're like, where is this? Because shows aren't, when you say a show starts some point, it doesn't take into account how long a show runs usually, right? So specifically on this timeline, you can go in, you will see red for movies, which are single point dates, green for shows, which have their time frames banded up and down across this timeline. And then the blue ones are the special presentations. We don't have a lot of them, but there are some in here. Very much so. And I went ahead and built from Phase 5 forward first, and then went back and backfilled all of the MCU. So you can see the entire MCU from 2008, when Tony Stark first became Iron Man, all the way up to 2028, which we think is possibly where this MCU might maybe not end, but at least have a huge event to do something to shake this up quite a bit.
Yeah, it is just absolutely wild just to look at this timeline. Like I was telling Chris earlier before we started recording, I'm just like a very visual learner and experiencer. So just going from this timeline and just watching just the density overall of projects changing is just wild. Like things explode once we get to 2021 with all of these shows, all of these overlapping content. It's wild to think that probably roughly the same amount of creatives really in charge of these projects are still able to keep track of it, right? Yeah. Like it's stunning, really.
Put me in, Kevin. I want to run your MCU Bible. I want to do this. I love this idea. Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we're gonna do, and Mike made a good point. So what we're gonna do is run through each phase. We have phase 5, 6, 7, and possibly a little bit of an 8. So we're gonna jump into phase 5. So guess what? The number one phase 5 thing is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It has been released. We know about this. The next project, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, coming out May 5th. After that is Secret Invasion, which is rumored to be May 17th through June 21st. It was delayed from March to give audiences a bigger break, which is like one of the rules, right, that they said they're trying to do going forward. The best part about the TV shows, they don't technically have release dates. They have windows. So they can move these around very, very, I guess, willy-nilly, if you will, and it doesn't really affect anything at the end of the day. After Secret Invasion is Loki Season 2, which takes place apparently 1 week after Secret Invasion, according to this source. Now, they have said, the source later said that Loki's been delayed to maybe August, and then we'll have a knock-on effect and delay other shows by a month or two, but we went with the original data to build this timeline. Echo, it will be October of 2023, which swapped with Ironheart's original slot, which was 2024. This is where we get into the first, I guess, unannounced project, Mike. Mephisto. A one shot, a
surprise. This could be like a troll too.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be so funny if you did have this leaked information that you knew 100% came off of like a company computer or something?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna throw Mephisto in there just to screw with them.
So apparently, due to the success of Werewolf by Night, these special presentations for Halloween will be every year going forward. So Mephisto's the first one. If they do this, that'd be great. Apparently, it will be shot along with Agatha. Coven of Chaos. So we talked a little bit via text. These special presentations can be anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes, right? Pretty simple, like a one episode of a show, if you will. So I assume they're going to be shooting these between 20 to 30 and putting them up online or on Disney Plus when they come out. So absolutely believe they could do this year and have it done in time. I think Werewolf by Night shot in March and was released in October last year. The Marvels was recently moved to November 10th of 2023. We knew that already. That's in here. Big surprise for me, Mike. This could be the best Christmas present I've ever had in my entire life. And that is a Sentry special presentation coming holiday 2023.
Crazy. This calendar year. Could you imagine when we started to hear about those Sentry rumors not too long ago that it would be happening this year, that you might get to see the MCU's version of the Sentry, which could be I already forgot his name. We thought he was going to possibly be a Hulk. Stephen Yeun. Yeah. Now they're even saying maybe, he might be the Sentry. So either way, it seems like he's pivoted to be one of the single strongest characters. In the MCU, or smartest, depending on however you want to put that label down.
Exactly,
there.
yeah. He could be either one of those two. So, absolutely. Apparently, the Sentry will be shot with the Thunderbolts, which is rolling cameras this summer. But specials at holiday time won't always be holiday themed, is the note here. Because Sentry is coming out in the holidays, doesn't mean it's a Christmas Sentry. It like Guardians was. It just happens to be, that's what their release window looks like for this. So, absolutely fine by me. Still in phase 5, starting 2024, Ironheart has been moved up to early 2024 to give Daredevil and Wonder Man time to not overlap with other projects. So that sounds, again, on par. Daredevil Born Again, spring 2024. This was brought up to not overlap with Thunderbolts. That is running for 18 weeks, Mike. That was the biggest thing I put in here, by the way, if you look into this. So if they do one episode a week, is which I assumed 18 episodes, it will overlap with Thunderbolts. However, if they do maybe some double ups on these, it won't. So again, some estimation there. Captain America New World Order movie, May 3rd, 2024. Fantastic. I Am Groot, the return of the animated shorts, coming mid 2024. They were like July this year, or 2022 when they came out, with those 5 3-minute movies. So very I guess minuscule on the calendar here. Little blip in the radar. Thunderbolts, July 6, 2024. Deadpool 3, September 6, 2024. And brought up to here because it will be ready before Blade is done filming, because I think they're still working on Blade's script. Wonder Man, fall 2024, is delayed not to overlap with Deadpool. This is a series. and brought up from his other delay date to not overlap with Blade. Then lastly, Halloween of 2024 will be a Man-Thing holiday special, Mike, or a Halloween special, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now, so this is kind of interesting. So we just laid out there the entire Phase 5 for you. So there might be some people who are looking into the tea leaves, trying to read, like, oh, maybe what's the theme of this phase going to be? What's going to be the overarching story? Is it going to be Kang that's really going to be, like, weaving its way through here? I still feel like maybe a lot of these TV shows and a lot of these projects are still things that were created maybe a little bit far ahead of maybe their big global strategy. Yep. So maybe some of these things won't quite fit in narratively, maybe how we thought they would. But I'm looking specifically here at the end of Phase 5, right? I feel like these end of phases we're used to back in the day. So take your nice little handy-dandy timeline that Chris made for us and look at the end of phases. Our end of phases, if you ignore Ant-Man being a very strange way to end a phase, right? We're like capping off these phases with like big old Avengers movies, big old Spider-Man movies, like talk about the biggest spectacle that we have to offer, right? And then for Phase 5, do we think it's Deadpool or do we think it's Blade? Like, it's obviously not Man-Thing. Man-Thing is not going to be our Phase 5 ender. That's just strange.
Well,
Deadpool seems like it's not gonna be super, I don't know, maybe it could be groundbreaking and changing. It just seems too comedic, really.
Well, so so I went ahead and updated the timeline because Blade in my notes is the start of Phase 6 according to this, so sorry about that.
Okay.
But Deadpool 3 is rumored again with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine dealing with variants of Wolverine in himself, right? In his last movie he went timeline hopping, if you will, right? Even though it is comedic, he did do the timeline hopping. I think this will pay off from that. So I think Deadpool 3 100% multiversal. I believe the Marvels will be multiversal as well. Now, I think you bring up a good point here. Captain America, Ironheart, Daredevil, Echo, Thunderbolts, possibly even Wonder Man, all really, really rooted in reality, right? Like very grounded. No Kang. I see no Kang invested in these movies at all, except for like Deadpool and the Marvels at most. Now, I will say against what you mentioned. We did have the holiday special, Guardians Holiday, at the end of quote unquote Phase 4, but that wasn't the Phase 4 like exclamation mark, right, or the period. It was just like, hey, here's some brackets around the end of it for fun, not necessarily coloring the thing. So to me, I really hope that Deadpool 3, even though this brings Kang into this due to his multiversal antics, if you will. Maybe he's not the villain, but it breaks something down throughout this to get to that point.
Yeah, if I had to pull a theme out of Phase 5 before we move on to Phase 6, you make a good point where a lot of this is very reality, human-based, Earth terrestrial, right? Maybe this is finally the phase that deals with how is Earth and humanity just changing overall. Now that the world that we live in is so catastrophically different than how it was when Iron Man announced that he was Iron Man back in 2008, because you got New World Order, Thunderbolts, Blade. You have these shows like Daredevil, Wonder Man. Everything seems to be hinting about like what is or isn't humanity or being human. So I hope that's the theme, because that theme does sound very strong and very needed. Yeah. Like that's the whole point. The best part about telling a superhero story is the underrated and underlooked part where you have a human being without powers somewhere nearby, right? You need like a meter, because all of a sudden if you're telling all of these stories where you're only ever focusing on the superpowered people, well, what's the point? Because the superpowered people are supposed to be there protecting somebody, right? You got to protect the human race, the civilizations, the people without the privilege of power. So I feel like they need to bring it back to that a little bit, right? Because if you look at something like Quantumania, I did not care about those, like, the quote unquote like people that like lived in the quantum realm. I don't know anything about them. I don't know how long they've been there. They're just weird goo people. Sometimes they look like human. I didn't care about their like Revolutionary or Civil War because I have no connection to the quantum realm, right? So that's the thing that they should try to avoid moving forward to give me stakes.
Yeah, well, and you know that's there's a lot of, again, heroes or I guess characters who are like Captain America. Sam Wilson is not going to step up to King, right? Like out of nowhere, like that would be completely out of left field because he's essentially been, you know, a sidekick. He did, you know, showed up at the end battle of Endgame, but like there's nothing there that would take him to that level, right? Or anyone in the Thunderbolts team short of Ghost. Seems like they would, yeah, I'm gonna go fight someone who can time travel and really just wreck me. So it does need to have, I guess, both levels, right? Like, you know, I would love to see it all multiversal, but I think what we're gonna see Phase 6 is where we're gonna get this multiversal bit of stuff here. And let's kind of jump into that a little bit if you're ready for that. So Phase 6, let's start with it's gonna be Blade, November 8th, 2023. So after multiple delays, people said that this is a firm slot for this movie. It's do or die, right, for this, so let's get it done. But holiday 2024, this is strongly rumored a Silver Surfer special presentation for that, to introduce this character. And
there it is.
Yes, and I've got actually news about Silver Surfer after all this, so you're gonna want to stay around for the Silver Surfer news. Agatha, Coven of Chaos, late 2024 to early 2025. They're filming this now, delayed to priorities to other shows. Makes sense, right? Coven of Chaos doesn't seem like it's multiversal really, at the end of the day. Fantastic Four, February 14th, 2025 movie. Everyone's very excited for this movie to come out. Every time somebody says something, like that's all you see in the articles for days. Fantastic Four. The Vision Quest series on Disney Plus coming spring 2025. So dealing with Vision, I guess White Vision and regular Vision after WandaVision for that. Armor Wars movie, May 2nd, 2025. I've got news for this at the end of the show as well, but it was brought up after being changed from a film to fill an empty movie slot because this movie will be ready by then. Apparently they transitioned this. The next big thing, What If Season 2 pushed to mid-2025, Mike. 2-year delay, if you will. This is a guess, absolutely, but I've seen this multiple places this week in terms of rumors. So if we don't get a What If for 2 years, I would be surprised. But if anything, I say this could change quite drastically at the end of the day. Young Avengers, another movie that has not been announced, Mike. Slide
heavily speculated, though.
Yes,
right?
for years. July 25th, 2025. That's a great slot for that. And we'll talk about this. Midnight Angels, the show based on the Dora Milaje, if you will, but with the blue suits, show coming to Disney Plus fall 2025. Ghost Rider Halloween special, Halloween 2025. Mike, one shot here, special presentation. Do you want to see Johnny Blaze or do you want to see? Oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. He drives the car version of him. Which one?
Johnny? Was it Johnny?
No,
or am I thinking of a different name?
Johnny Blaze is the main one. Johnny's not the second one either. So do you want? I would say do both. I say have both the Ghost Riders in there, right? Like I think that would make it pretty cool to have Johnny and.
I mean, well, we know it's not going to be Nick Cage, just based off of a quote that he was recently had in the news, where he was just like, "I don't need Marvel, they need me. I'm Nick Cage," basically, which is a very badass thing to say.
Yeah. So, absolutely. Ghost Rider, Halloween 2025. Marvel Zombies, October 2025. Delayed to give Wonder Man room to move up a little bit. Zombies also exist in that multiverse animated region, right? So, absolutely can put that wherever they need to. Gonna go into Shang-Chi 2, November 7th, 2025 movie placement. Nova, Holiday 2025 special. And this is a guess as it's before Kang Dynasty. They want to have Nova in there before the Kang Dynasty movies. Spider-Man 4, December 19th, 2025. This is 5 movies in 2025, Mike. Now, mind you, Spider-Man is a Sony movie, so they don't count it against the releases, but they still need to make room for it. But this was delayed from 2024 to not overlap with Thunderbolts, and that they will not be ready to make a 2024 release for this movie. A new show that has not been announced, Strange Academy, late 2025, early 2026. We've talked about this being the strange, I guess the mystical classes. Doctor Strange 3, again, we know this is coming. 13th of February 2026. Also supposed to be before King Dynasty. Miss Marvel Season 2, spring 2026. And then finally, Avengers, the King Dynasty, May 1st, 2026.
Yes. Oh, the other Ghost Rider we were thinking of was Robbie Reyes.
Robbie, there it is. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's always alliteration there in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So we just had to think of double
I
letter names
literally
there.
talked about him today because there's a Fortnite character who looks just like him, like with like the flame mohawk and the skull face. I'm like, oh, this looks like a Robbie Reyes character. But anyway, thank you for fixing that. But this is where the timeline starts to come in handy because goddamn, there are so many movies in this. That we just listed off, even new ones that have not been announced yet, right? This is where the fun begins. Like, we can start throwing stuff in. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. Everything about this except Midnight Angels feels multiversal.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Especially with this combo of possibly having the Strange Academy butting up with Doctor Strange 3.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of storytelling that they could have going on there. And I guess they got to rebuild the ranks, right? Because Wanda did she kill a lot of those students? I don't remember exactly how that fight went down. Were they just kind of like incapacitated and fell on the floor? Or were they like eviscerated?
I think somewhere, but at the end of the movie, there was a big class training, right? So they were working on that. I think there's more that were not in Kamar Taj, but at the other places around the Earth as well. But you're right. And then, Doctor Strange 3 would set off into Kang Dynasty. We've heard rumors that Kamala Khan's bracelets are maybe multiversal or dealing with Kang as well. This seems like a very, very straight shot through, straight to multiverse, right? Like boom, 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 boom. One big giant story for Phase 6, if you will.
Yeah. It does make you wonder, does Spider-Man 4 dip back into that at all? Because they just had a whole blowout, right, with all of these different Spider-Man characters. Would it make sense for it to happen again? Or did they kind of already do narratively kind of everything that you could do with other Spider-Men? Right? There are rumors that the next Spider-Verse movie, Tom Holland could be included in that, but that's going the different way down the street. So I would be okay if Spider-Man 4 just leaned away from the multiverse, right? Yeah. Just have him trying to rebuild his life, living in New York City.
And I would say maybe Armor Wars is probably not going to be as heavily focused on this, but maybe could end with a result in something. We've got news on that later. We'll talk about that. And I think I would also say Young Avengers could maybe not be as multiversal if, I don't know who they'd fight, but,
well, I guess it depends if you throw America Chavez in there.
Yeah.
If you're saying that she's part of that rank and cast, I feel like you gotta include it some way.
She'd have to use her power somehow, right? Yeah, absolutely. So, you're right. So maybe that's up a little bit. But I think maybe not everything is, but boy, does this feel like if you were like, hey, could you sum it all up pretty quickly? We are working towards this multiverse war with the King variants and everything going on. So, yeah, absolutely. I think this is fun. We're gonna get into Phase 7 now. This is an unannounced phase, and I've kind of made some, I guess, if you will, adjustments to what Marvel said was their Phase 6 right here, based on this news here. And this was given to us from that source. So Phase 7, we're going to talk about the Battleworld saga. And we've speculated on this, right? Like every movie in Phase 7 will be based on this Battleworld that ends the King Dynasty and get us to the next Avengers movie. So first up, Moon Knight Season 2, mid-2026. I don't think it was ever an if, it was more of a when, right? When Moon Knight was gonna happen. New movie Midnight Suns, the horror supernatural part of Marvel coming together. We've got Blade and Ghost Rider in there coming together. In those movies, the phase before
what was that alternative title that was floating around for a while, where we were going to kind of put all of these dark characters together? It wasn't Midnight Suns before, was it? It was something else.
Midnight Suns is it? It's not Dark Avengers. I don't was it wasn't Max. I don't know. I'm just said Midnight Suns if I'm going to be completely honest. But that's kind of, I wouldn't say been ruined. It's just everyone thinks about it because of the new game. So everyone's like, oh, Midnight Suns was the game. I'm trying to look it up. Yeah, all I've got is the Midnight Suns here in my notes from before. So,
all right.
But yeah, so we've got that. We've also got, obviously, Werewolf by Night, right? Man Thing, all those things come together. If they're on Battleworld, I guarantee they'd be teaming up together already. We already know the characters. We don't have to get them together. They're already existing. She-Hulk Season 2, Fall 2026. Again, not another win, not an if, but a win. So that seems to be placing itself in there. This is where we get an untitled Halloween special for 2026. They really want to continue it. The rumor from the rumor guy is that it could be Black Knight because of Midnight Suns and Eternals. So makes sense. November 6th, 2026, World War Hulk. And this has now been changed from a show to a movie for budgetary reasons, and it will have the rights back from Universal. Or not Universal.
Yeah.
Was it Universal? Yeah, Universal, right?
Yeah, they would have to have the rights back in order to make it a movie, right? It would be kind of funny, though, if you kind of did some creative accounting, right? Technically make it a show, but really you're putting it through the all of the loops and hoops that you would a movie, right? But you're technically just distributing on Disney Plus. But I'm looking forward to going back to the big screen, seeing a Hulk movie.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with so many being introduced. we got some Hulks coming up, folks, for sure. Holiday 2026, untitled holiday special. No clue. So we'll see if this comes to fruition. What If Season 3, we've talked about this being the last season. If they're doing multiverse, early 2027, this will be where it lives. Eternals 2, we recently said that it's in the pre-production schedule, February 12th, 2027 as a movie. The Illuminati show, spring 2027, Mike. The team we saw on that alternate Earth in Doctor Strange 2 getting possibly their own show.
I thought you were going to say getting back together. Then I was going to say, were you saying literally? Or
yeah.
Because they were kind of torn to pieces. So is this a prequel? If this is all multiversal, right? Is this just a slightly varied version of them? Who knows?
Well, yeah, and the rumor, I'm just going to throw this out here, is very much another rumor for Illuminati is was one empty seat in Doctor Strange 2, right? On the chairs. Who made the Ultron bots in our universe? Tony Stark. So who wasn't there, and who's going to come back for revenge? Theory, possibly.
Oh, okay.
So it could be an alternate Tony Stark, not necessarily Robert Downey Jr. Avengers: Secret Wars, May 7th, 2027. This was delayed to set up for production delays. Now, I will tell you, Secret Wars, as we've mentioned before, could be split into 2 movies, right? To tell a bigger story. No need to rush it. No need to get through Secret Wars in one movie. And if they do, this title, the title that is 2 titles for the sequel would be called Avengers Forever or Avengers Eternity Wars. Both are comic book titles. And
I feel like if it's Avengers Forever, right? That I feel like that's signaling more like a big universal reset, right?
Yep.
Let's just start this bad boy over, recast everything. Let's just rerun this universe. I wouldn't be surprised if even Kevin Feige steps down, retires, moves on to a different project, different studio. Between now and then, a new streaming service is created, and they make him CEO or something like that. Something wild like that will happen between all of this time, right? Eternity Wars, to me, signals more of like a softer reboot, right? Let's keep what works and throw out what didn't. Kind of like how the Crisis event on the CW went out, where they kept only the good parts of the world that they wanted to keep around.
Absolutely. The big part of this is to debut on May of 2028, which will be the 20th anniversary of the MCU, Mike. Can you imagine that? 20 years of MCU in 5 years from now. Mind-blowing. So looking back at Phase 7 here, the Battleworld title, I believe, does live up to its name a little bit, right? Like, these will seem like amalgamations of characters before we get to Secret Wars.
Yeah. The only thing that I feel like maybe you could square with just a narrative storytelling device is I'm looking at something like She-Hulk season 2. I don't think she does a lot of lawyer paperwork if she's stuck on a Battleworld, right? You know, she's not going to have her normal like best friends around her. She's not going to be going on dates if she's stuck in a Battleworld. So maybe it's like maybe not everybody who's super powered from Earth gets scooped up and put on a Battleworld. Maybe some people are left behind, or some people escape the magic portal, or whatever, you know, sends them over to that world. So
well, I'll tell you right now, the Battleworld they're going after literally rips New York out of our world and puts it on this new planet. So it's literally just New York again over there. So it's not just like a ravage thing. Each section of Battleworld is essentially out of another comic book universe, if you will. So they brought New York in. So if they are like, this is life now, right? We're dealing with crazy shit all over, and she has to still. New York is operating as normal, or they're trying to. I think that could set up some funny stuff, or you know, as they kind of did in between some of Endgame and Infinity War. Ant-Man was a prequel, right? Maybe She-Hulk's a prequel before they get to that battle world.
Or maybe our theoretical battle worlds don't start at the very beginning of Phase 7, right? You know, World War Hulk kind of seems like maybe that's the first place to start off, right? You know, we go through more of a somewhat normal season of She-Hulk season 2.
Right.
That season finale, stuff goes wild. All of a sudden we got battle worlds, and we're starting it off with World War Hulk, you know? Because we see everything after World War Hulk, you know, Eternals, What If, Illuminati, Secret Wars. Those are all big storytelling things that could handle a battle world.
Yeah. And those would be the only ones, because the theory is between Secret Wars and Eternity Wars or Forever, there will be no Marvel projects. They're taking a whole year off for it.
Wow, that would be wild.
Yeah, so the plan is currently all characters, and this is for Bob Iger, I think, as well, all characters introduced in the Infinity Saga will be sidelined or phase out after Phase 7 or 8. Introduce a new / cleaner universe for jumping on point, as you mentioned, right? Forever, new universe. Eternity Wars, a cleaner universe, if you will. And that removes hundreds of hours of content watching catching up, which I think is important after 20 years. And then also could be a new this could be a new universe in the MCU eventually. So like, hey, here's your new universe, Ultimate style, and the MCU is wrapping up. We're gonna tell any story we want to finish over there, and then when it's done, and we'll focus on this new one completely.
Yeah, it is weird to think about the squaring the narrative side of the MCU with the financial side of the MCU, right? Because if you think about it overall, they've definitely had a return on their investment, right? There's
Absolutely.
no doubt about it. They paid a great sticker price, especially for all of the things that they were able to make after buying Marvel. So no love lost there, right? They could definitely take some time off making Marvel stuff, right? But it is hard to imagine, right?
Yeah.
Disney as a company going 2-3 years, maybe even 5 years, a long hiatus without making anything Marvel. It just seems strange. It just seems very much part of the company. So maybe they take like a year or two off. You know, it seems like they are able to do that with Star Wars just fine.
Yeah.
And then maybe they just slow the cadence down. But at the same time, you're also like, that's leaving money on the table. Like, so maybe honestly, how Hollywood should be and how all creatives should be, look for the next thing, right? Maybe it's not Marvel. Maybe try to create a brand. How about this? Blue Sky, I know it's impossible. Make something brand new that's never existed before. Start a new franchise. Go out there and do the hard work. Boots to the ground and start reading scripts, read an original idea, and try to turn it into a franchise. I don't know, but it's wild taking in this whole timeline. I wasn't earlier trying to sound facetious, because this is definitely amazing. But
it's so hard to talk. Like, I feel like I'm running through it, but like when you look at it, like, oh my god, there's so much here. Like, it sounds a lot to say, but like I said, because you mentioned Moon Knight season 2, it's not a 1 weekend deal. That's a 9 weekend promise, right? Or 6 to 9 weekend promise for sure.
Yeah.
So
I think kind of the biggest takeaway I think I have looking at this timeline, I zoomed out so I can kind of take a look at everything here that's coming up, is unfortunately, I feel like there is no way all of these puzzle pieces fit together the way phases 1 through 3 did, right? Because there's simply just more of them, right? You've increased the difficulty of the puzzle by just making it more pieces. I'm not saying you can't put it together, right? But I feel like the odds of missing a piece or one piece getting like waterlogged because your coffee was too close to it, right? The odds are just ever higher. So I feel like we're never quite going to recapture just that pureness of what it was to watch Infinity War and Endgame, but it still doesn't mean I'm not excited for the ride. I mean, I'm looking at a roller coaster right here, man. Yeah. This is absolutely wild, all this stuff.
What we need for this to be successful, for the MCU to continue to be successful, is surprises, right? Things we didn't expect, because I feel it's a bit, I would say, almost predictable. And now, mind you, we theorize quite a bit. I mean, we spitball more than probably the average person, but like, if you hit me with a Sentry by Christmas, I'm still not expecting this. I'm 100% believing this rug is going to get pulled out from under me at any second, and I'm like, oh yeah, it was just a theory, it was just rumors. You need to surprise the hell out of us so we don't know what's coming, and take those risks. Now, mind you, like Quantumania, it's going to come in at like $500,000, $500,000 or $500 million, right, at the box office. Nothing to laugh at. Made its money back. Not a failure, but I feel like the movie was safe and predictable, even though it is the quantum verse, right? Like, yeah, we kind of knew what was going to happen. Give us something crazy. Like, literally start taking pawns off the table or moving them to the other side.
No,
that's something wild.
That's exactly it, Chris. Pawns off the table. That's what I was thinking too. Because if they know that they are eventually going to reboot everything and start fresh from a brand new universe, that gives them the perfect opportunity to start killing off people, right? Like, can you imagine like the Sentry, absolutely obliterating like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, like in a battle world? Like, that's, no one's gonna expect that. Like, Deadpool is such a cherished, profitable character, and just to see him get smashed to pieces like by the Sentry would just go. That'd be insane.
Well, and I think the other part of that is, don't be afraid to do it before we get to a battle world. Literally, like, don't save your shock value for your big movies. Like, if Shang-Chi 2 comes along and it's the wreckage of time, maybe some people have to die to get there, right? Like,
where's the wreckage?
Yeah, so like, Doctor Strange 3, what if Doctor Strange ends up being the bad guy for Phase 7? Because he's the one doing the incursions. I don't know. I just don't want to wait for Kang to show up whenever I think we have the ability to literally just start. Not, we don't have to kill people, but like literally start doing things to shake this snow globe up and see where things land for the battle, for the end of this, and go with it. Commit to that at the end of it.
Yeah, actors start shoring up those contracts. Yeah, because looks like you might be a couple years away from getting the axe.
Getting ye old axe. So let's jump into some color for this. So Armor Wars, we talked about that coming phase, I believe 6 or 7, I don't remember when. Phase 6. James Spader is rumored to return as Ultron in that movie. Ooh. So redeeming the Ultron, if you will. Now there's a really, really cool comic series called Annihilation Wave, or Annihilation Conquest, where Ultron, they killed him, but he didn't die. He sent his mind to space, really, and like rebuilt his army in space and started causing havoc out there. It's fantastic. Absolutely recommend that 100%. So I would definitely check that out if you can. The other part is this, there's a series not in here, but I heavily rumored to be called Nomad, bringing Chris Evans, Captain America, and Scarlett Johansson back together, because they will lead and produce the series together. And it will essentially be the multiversal story of Captain America returning the Infinity Stones, finally. The story that we've wanted all these years. Now we will see different versions of we have our one Captain America, but we'll see different versions of him. And Natasha, we know she is dead in the main universe, so having different iterations of her along for that ride in this show, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I don't need it. I felt like we sent off Chris Evans in just like the perfect fashion at the end of that phase, right? I feel like the only way this works for me emotionally is if you put this, like, the last Disney Plus series before we reset the whole universe, right? Just, hey, let's look back, right, at our beloved, cherished Captain America from way early on in this crazy 20-year cycle, to have like just you know,
well,
a little cry before you go into that Avengers Forever movie.
And the last bit of this is that this series would be very serious in nature and less jokes, right? Because obviously it's supposed to be. This is not a funny series, and it's supposed to be a test bed for future series in the Marvel universe. Now, it doesn't have a date. It could be the last thing. It could be something along the way. I think, again, when you think of, again, what is that? What is a monetary draw for Marvel, right? Captain America, Chris Evans, right? He'll probably come back before Robert Downey Jr. ever comes back to the roles. But if it is a very serious, I would say more of a drama series, more than a jaunt through the multiverse, I think that would be one of those things we talked about, shaking the snow globe, giving us something we didn't expect along the way through that. Because I agree. I think he ended on a good point. I think what you end this series on is the point where he, like you mentioned, gets back with Peggy, right, at the end. Like, literally, it's him opening the door before we see the dancing at the end of Endgame, if you will. So I think there's a way for it to make it work and keep it serious along the way. Doctor Strange 3, Sam Raimi is rumored to return for the third movie. Now, he directed Multiverse of Madness. This is no way a confirmation he's coming back, but they are having conversations with him, looking for him to bring his style back to the MCU along the way.
Yeah.
I think he did it. I think stylistically, he brought one of the better styles to the MCU, right? With this movie, so absolutely. And lastly, I promised Silver Surfer news, Mike. Matt Shakman, director of WandaVision, who's also directing Fantastic Four, will direct the Silver Surfer project at Disney Plus, and he will also work on part of Vision Quest. Now, not the whole thing, but because he had WandaVision. Passing that off to the Vision Quest team and working with them. So he apparently signed a really good contract with them recently, and this is what it's breaking down to be. Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, and Vision Quest, which are fantastic. That's great. That's great news, right? Like, to have someone be doing all that, because he did a great job with WandaVision along the way.
Yeah, really makes you wonder what's going to happen. I feel like that Silver Surfer project, which was in Phase 5, if you remember correctly, right? Or was it? No, it was Phase 6.
It's the start of 6.
2024 next year. I feel like that Silver Surfer project could be signaling some big hints for those projects that follow it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's the last, I guess, quote unquote, one-shot special presentation before Fantastic Four. So it would make sense he does it all at the same time, right, along the way. Mike, that is our news for the week. That is everything. I'm exhausted from it, mentally and emotionally drained, if you will. But again, the interactive timeline is up. We will put the link in here to our site, and then also directly as well, so you guys can find it. But if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, Mike, where can they find you at, buddy?
Yeah, you can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to find you, where are you?
I am on Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, or Instagram, Valdan87. If people want to know about the show, get ready for our Shazam Fury of the Gods review, which we're doing next week. Where can I find all that good stuff at?
Yeah, well, I'm going to wrap this one up quick since this was an extra large full episode. Head on over to superheroslate.com. You got to click into the show notes this week because we have a link to that interactive timeline in our show notes. You got to check that out. Give it a look. It's great. Chris put a lot of hard work into that. So superheroslate.com, that is the best place to find that link in our show notes. We love our super fans. If you want to be a super fan of this show, it's so easy to do. All you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks. So come back next week, and we will be talking Shazam.
That's right. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.